Aristotle, you have been charged with one count of impacting science more than anyone else. How do you plead?
Your Honor, I plead guilty. Unfortunately, I must confess that I founded modern science. I studied the world and gave it the old induction to theorize on its causes. I looked for the why, and my theories on the world gave the foundations for millennia of students prior and after. I created the periodic table, all 5 elements, and these theories stood the test of time until those upstarts decided they were too good for me. But by that time, my work was done, and I was already the most influential, the founder of science. If anyone has seen further, it is because they stood on my shoulders.
Your Honor, can I speak to my defendant real quick?
I will allow you to plead guilty.
Your Honor, I object. I think, therefore, I am, and I think you, sir, are an absolute moron.
Excuse me, youngling. You cannot beat me. I invented the science you rejected thousands of years prior to your birth.
You underestimate my thought capacity, old man. I made it my goal to surpass you, and history speaks for itself. The scientists of today still use my Cartesian plane in mathematics. The philosophers still debate my methods of empiricism without the senses, as they cannot be trusted. I am widely known as the father of modern philosophy. My discourse on the method is a classical work of art, which is still read and studied in classes. I influence many with my non-Aristotelian methods. I believe that there is an infinite God, and that our mind and bodies are finite. Hence, if I can conceive of a separate mind and body, therefore they exist in that way. I fixed what Aristotle did wrong, and I created a new modern philosophy.
Have you considered being a nerd? Or a silly, silly joke, Descartes? All you did was think about stuff and come up with even sillier conclusions. Oh, mon Dieu! A perfect God exists, therefore, if my thought is clear and objective, then it must be true. Don't make me laugh. You were just jealous of my many accomplishments, so you came up with a bunch of rules to beat them, but it didn't work. According to you, all that we can see and hear in this book is not real. Well, does that feel real to you? Does it? Does courses?
Pauvre. You are too proud and arrogant for your own good, monsieur. My philosophy is built off nothing but certainty. All we know about that book is that it takes up space. Besides that, rien, nothing, you foolish person. We can never know what it looks like or feels like because all of that is our own perception. This is revolutionary thinking. You're welcome. The last thing I know is certain is that this makes me the most influential contributor to science.
Listen, buddy boy, get in real close here. I need you to hear this. My toga may be white, but my country never surrenders! It is not over!
Oi!
I object, Your Honor. I am the true criminal.
My book, Principia, is one of the most important works in the history of science. As I was saying, my book contains my theory of calculus, laws of motion, and universal gravitation. With my theory of calculus, one is able to solve problems that cannot be solved with algebra alone. My 3 laws of motion had held up after 200 years of experimentation and still provide accurate approximations. Someone seize that man.
Order, this court, right now, order.
Anyways, my 3 laws are able to provide accurate approximations to this day. I was also the first person to describe gravity as a universal force. With the combined methods of my ideas on motion and gravity, scientists were able to predict Neptune's presence and existence before it was observed. I also invented the first reflecting telescope, a device that uses mirrors instead of lenses. This made the telescope more powerful than previous models, yet it is also 10 times smaller. I determined that white light is a mix of colors that can be separated into its component parts with a prism. I discovered the generalized binomial theorem in 1665, which remains to be used extensively in mathematics today. I believe you will find with this evidence I am truly guilty of all charges.
No, sir!
Okay, what is going on here?
Shut up, Weinberg. The real scientist.
You know what? You shouldn't even be.
Your Honor, I am truly guilty of impacting science the most.
I am the greatest expert on neutrons. I am the king of neutrons. I discovered that uranium neutrons turned into fissioning uranium, which broke apart other uranium atoms and created a huge burst of energy. Boom! The first nuclear reactor was created by me at the University
This is my book. They still need me.
of Chicago, and some of my team members helped me. This reactor was used in the Manhattan Project to create plutonium. The atomic bomb would not have been created without me, so we would not have won the war without me. In 1938, I was awarded the Nobel Prize for my contributions to physics. I have contributed so much to physics, and therefore I am the most important scientist to ever exist.
Excuse me, gentlemen. I believe I'm at fault here for being the scientist who has had the most impact on science. How many of you can say that you were the first to split the atom? My discoveries made your work possible, Mr. Fermi. And might I add, you cannot be the most impactful. You only made the world worse with your big nuclear weapons. The exact thing I warned you all about. I, sir, made my discoveries for peace and curiosity, not for the death and destruction of others. Before you start claiming that the bomb would have never been created, might you think to remember who made the discoveries that gave you the chance to even research nuclear physics? I discovered the nucleus. Christ, I was the one to discover you could split the atom. You, sir, have no right to claim that you made an impact on science.
Millions of people would have died if I did not create this reactor. The world has not been worse off with the creation of these atomic weapons, not at all. Ask Edward Teller next time you see him. He'll even advocate the hydrogen bond to you. You're right, you made these basic discoveries, but I did something with them. What's the point of having bread if someone doesn't make a sandwich with it?
226,000 people died because of you. Innocent people because of your bloody science experiment. You, sir, are a murderer, not a scientist. You have turned our field into a weapon against humanity. You should be ashamed of yourself. And as I, the father of nuclear physics and the winner of the 1908 Nobel Prize for my work in radioactivity, I deem your argument irrelevant.
Excuse me, gentlemen. I believe that I'm truly guilty of the crimes here today for the following reasons. Firstly, I developed the first cyclotron. Without it, we would still be in an age without nuclear power or energy. I then worked on the Manhattan Project to develop more advanced cyclotrons and accelerators. My cyclotron allows current scientists to further develop their methods to discover the Higgs boson or the God particle. My technology has given more research to radioisotopes for medicinal use. Without me, none of this would be possible, and I certainly would have overlooked for all of this. I deserve the sentencing.
It's time for a final verdict. You all have been improper and absolutely abhorrent as courtroom participants. Also, Stevie, way to hit a man while they're down. It's real hard to respond when you're 6 feet under. In any case, it's time to ask the jury what they think of our proceedings. Jury? Well, it looks like they all got bored and left. So it looks like I'm the jury now. In any case, it is clear who the real guilty party is. I charge myself.
No! Not this time! Not this time, Q! No, not again, Q. I will not let you take the light this time. You always believe you're correct. You're a doubtful and angry person with no respect for those like Copernicus and Galileo who died for their work. Science has made great strides, and you refuse to see it unless it is your work. Yet, there is a reason I have the Nobel Peace Prize. There's a reason that I'm part of many societies, and you are not. There's a reason you're only a college professor. If you only wrote a handful of books, and you're only known for one of them. I wrote many, and I'm known for all of them. You need to be knocked down a peg or two, Q. If I am not the most influential in science, then none of us deserve to be.
I do not concur.
Really, Aristotle?
Sorry, I just wanted to be in the party. You, the most influential man in science? That's absurd, Weinberg. You're just a naive optimist who believes science is always leading towards something, and it's not. Science is not some progression, literally like a treasure map that leads to some big red X that'll lead you to a bigger truth or some crap. Scientific discovery is a complex process. It always has been, it always will be. And people 100 years ago thought they were right, and now we see that they're not. What's to say that the people 100 years from now won't see the same thing from us, Weinberg? Believing anything else is absolute malarkey.
Oh, please, Kuhn. You cannot deny the great improvements that science has made towards the qualities of life. You're just an angry scientific pessimist who is too stubborn to see the truth. How can you be a great scientist when even you can't accept that science has been bringing us closer and closer to greater existence?
I am done with this shit. Case adjourned. Where the fuck is Newton in here?
I say to thee, shut up. Finite. Hence, if I can conceive of a separate man and body, therefore. Pauvre. You are.
You're a silly, silly joke. Descartes. All you did is think about stuff and came up with even sillier.
Excuse me, sirs. Uh-oh.
Well, he went up. I go.
No, sir.
What was my line? I forgot.
God!
Fine.
Oh, what is going on here?
How about we tie a toga, maybe?
Hey!
Oh, there it goes.
Okay, let's go.
Do it quickly.
Okay, go.
You're recording?
I'm going for it full time.
Okay. As I was saying, my book contains my theory of calculus, laws of motion, and universal gravitation. With my theory of calculus, are you
I just saw him moving.